Hi, everybody. I'm programmer Chris Metzler here with SF Indie Fest's Green Film Festival of San Francisco. As you can see, how we're doing this Q&A is that we're still kind of in the topsy-turvy world of the pandemic. So we have both live and in-person screenings and also screenings virtually. And whether at the Roxy or in the comfort of your own home, you've just had a chance to see this really wonderful film, Strangers in Boxes. And we're lucky enough to have filmmaker Gabriel Diamond here. Hey, Gabriel.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks for being here. And obviously, you're an alumni of some other SF Indie Fest film festivals, so kind of excited to bring you into the Green Film Festival world.
Yeah, I remember back in the early days, I used to come as an attendee and spend the whole week watching films. So it's great to be on the inside now.
Well, very cool. Well, it's neat to kind of run across this film. And I guess maybe you could kind of share us a little bit of background. Is like, was this kind of intended to be a film from the beginning, or like what was its kind of genesis?
Yeah, it's an unusual film in that the genesis for this was really my full-time job is as the filmmaker, the staff filmmaker for the Skoll Foundation, and we support social entrepreneurs, social innovators, activists, artists around the world, change makers working on large-scale change, addressing the world's thorniest problems. And we do an annual event every year that actually just wrapped up today around spring break in April. And last year was the middle of the pandemic, and we were doing this annual Skoll World Forum, and we always do a kickoff film to sort of explore the explore the theme and get everybody sort of pumped up for the week of meetings and everything going on. And typically for the opening film, it's like our kind of like highly produced, we're going to make something really really engaging kind of thing. And I was like, man, it's in the middle of a pandemic, nobody could go anywhere, nobody could see anybody in person, so we're all on Zoom. Maybe we could just like do something on Zoom that's actually something that people really would actually want to watch. Like, is it possible? So it started off with a sort of as an experiment, like, is it possible to have a really genuine, moving experience that really both inspires the participants who are in the Zoom film experience and will inspire and move the people who watch it. And so we sort of set out to create an experience over a series of Zoom calls for these strangers from around the world to interact with each other in the middle of a pandemic, and then record every single person's screen and then put it together into a film that sort of captures that and gives the audience a sense of like, what's it like for people around the world in the middle of a pandemic who've dedicated their lives to improving their communities, to making like large scale change. What's that like for them to respond to this moment and to get to meet each other and share with each other? And so that was really the experiment for how it came to be. And so it was made for the Skoll Foundation, for the Skoll World Forum as the opening film. And then we were like, you know what, this is actually a pretty cool film. Let's submit it to some film festivals and see what happens. And we've been really delighted to see that there's been, an audience of just film goers who want to see something like this, even though it's on Zoom and we all hate Zoom. I just want to see, can we have fun? Can we actually have a cinematic experience on Zoom?
And, for the participants, right, were they, I mean, obviously they were game for giving this a go, but like, were there any sort of skepticism involved, or, or did they even understand what was happening? Or it was just basically like, okay, well, Skoll's trying to do this, let's see how it turns out. I mean, was there any tentativeness at all?
Yeah, there's definitely tentativeness, because we put out the invitation to probably a couple hundred people in our network around the world, and I think less than 40 said yes. So definitely all the people who said no, they must have been skeptical. For the people who showed up, they were game. And the invitation was very much in the spirit of what the film was. Like, we're going to do an experiment around connection through Zoom, and are you game to do this and to be part of an experiment and to be recorded while you have this experience? So they knew that they were getting into something that they didn't know what it was going to be like. It was not going to be a traditional interview. These people are, typically used to being interviewed, like, hi, I'm a journalist, or I'm from the foundation, and I'm going to put you on Zoom, and I'm going to record you, and we're going to make a video about you. And I was like, this is not what that is. This is actually going to be you in your home, maybe your family, your kids, your pets, outside your window. It's going to be really taking the lid off your personal life in a way, but doing it in a way that's not about exploiting, but in a way of just really humanizing strangers and each other in that way.
And it's such a kind of a, I guess just a neat experience, right? But it's also cool about how you were able to kind of put it together with a film. And it makes me think, I mean, one is like, what were the kind of parameters or ideas that you set up ahead of time, in the sense of like that the framing device that you knew that you wanted to do, and how much of the film do you think was built in that moment versus editorially?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to center a lot of the experience around the kind of classic, outtakes of like when somebody does walk behind you in the Zoom, when you're in this boring Zoom meeting and then all of a sudden something happens on someone's screen and all you can do is watch what they're doing. It's like they don't realize the camera's on and they're looking in the mirror, they're doing something like that. So I had them all like do these things of just like look into the camera and, fix your hair and cover the screen up and do things like that. So I knew I wanted to play with that. I knew I wanted to like play with having having them hold up their an image on their phone and show it to the screen. Like I knew that like I wanted that feeling of people trying to reach each other. And when you do that, you have to like look, and the other people give you the sort of feedback of like, no, to the right, to the left. And there's sort of this people lean in and try to reach each other. I wanted to try to capture that visceral feeling of people really trying to reach each other. And so that's why it wasn't like, send me your video and I'm going to superimpose it and do some video editing. It was like the goal was actually 100% nothing shows up on screen that wasn't actually captured via people's webcams. And so that was the main parameter. So we knew that we were going to have them walk around and hold their laptops and walk through their house and pan it out the window and take a look at what's outside and just sort of explore their environments and do some get to know you kind of intimacy sharing as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, so outside of the film, I mean, just given the people that we see involved, I mean, have you heard anecdotally, I mean, how over the last 2 years of, many of the activists that you come encounter with, what have they shared about how they've kind of adapted to this new world? And then ideally, as we kind of open up, it's like, what have they learned over these, this time period that they're going to take into, I guess, the world as it is? Is it, how are they going to kind of transform from taking like what was working before the pandemic and what was working during the pandemic? And, are there any kind of lessons from activists that they have kind of shared anecdotally with you?
Yeah, I mean, you really get a sense in the film of how, for a lot of these people, like their work just stopped. Their funding streams just completely stopped. Their ability to work with each other in person in communities just stopped. Like it became, in some of the people from sort of more repressive countries, they weren't allowed to even go outside. And so there's you really get a sense of just how it's one thing for me with my job. Now I'm working from home, and that is a huge life change. But for folks who are literally in the business of saving lives, how that shifted their priorities. And for a lot of folks, things are starting to open up now again. And then a lot of folks, it's still forever changed. They still don't have that kind of, they're still trying to figure out how to get back to working in an effective way that they used to be able to. I mean, the gentleman from I think Sierra Leone was, he had to, he I don't think he's allowed to visit those prisons anymore. Now they can say like, no, now you're not allowed to visit the prisons because of COVID. And so as a lawyer, before he had access, but now he doesn't. So it's a lot of their work has just become so much harder to do.
Wow. Well, thanks again for sharing this film with us, Gabriel. And, for those of us that are curious to kind of learn more about the work that these activists do and the Skull Foundation, what's the best way to do that and kind of follow some of the other films that you make?
Yeah, you can learn all about all the organizations, incredible organizations around the world that we support at skoll.org. It's SKOLL.org. And you can see the films that I've made on my website, which is outsidefilms.com. And, I'll also just say that one of my obsessions, interests, passions outside of filmmaking is, and you can really get a sense of this in the film when people hold up their little signs, is around vulnerability and connection. And so my partner, Candace Holdorf, and I created something called Vulnerable Rally, where people hold up vulnerable signs to each other, often in public on street corners. So if folks want to see versions of that, they can see that at vulnerablerally.org is where that project lives.
Very cool. Well, looking forward to seeing what you come up next, Gabriel, and have a great day.
Thanks so much, Chris. Great to see you.
Most definitely.